Chapter 1. The brother of the minor orders. First, I considered the future times which were foretold by Christ in the gospel, namely the tribulations at the time of the Antichrist, under which the Roman Church will be scourged, and will be robbed of all its riches by tyrants. And although the Church of God was thus desolate and sheltered at that time, it will still be delivered from so many tribulations by Christ. Wherefore, in order to deliver the chosen people of God, to whom it is given to know the ministry of God and the teaching of the truth, I want to speak without much talk of the work of the great philosopher's stone, both white and red, and this is contrary to the custom of the philosophers who were before us, who because of malice envy the art of these people, their own children have exalted, and my intention is, by the example of the goods of the Holy Roman Church, to tell briefly all its truth. Chapter 2, the material of our stone. The material of the stone is one and the same thing, of low price, which is everywhere found in viscous water. C5. Chapter 2, the material of our stone. The material of the stone is one and the same thing, of low price, which is everywhere found in viscous water. The material of the stone is one and the same thing, of low price, which is everywhere found in viscous water. That is called mercury, and since they say that it is repeated in low places, many brutal men who do not understand according to the intention of the philosophers have sought this stone in the dung hills. And you should know, my son, that matter is prepared by removing the earthiness which mercury has, and by adding to it the sulfur of the philosophers, which is not common sulfur, nay, sulfur of our own is invisible. And I will call it by its proper name, which is the Roman vitriol, which some of the philosophers call magnesia, and these two operations are thus. Chapter 3 of the said operation, recipe of saltpeter, 1 pound of Roman vitriol, that is, 1 pound of each of the ground and mixed dry in a golden pan over a slow fire, always stirring so that the moisture recedes. Then take 1 pound of quicksilver, of ore, not of lead, and wake it up, wrapped in a cloth, over a material of glass and saltstone, somewhat hot, because it passes through the pores. It is sown, and stir the matter with a stick, so that it is well mixed, so that nothing of the mercury appears, and put it in a vessel to sublime over a gentle fire, if the matter is well dried. Put the mouth closed after placing it over the whole, and it will fortify the fire for 12 hours, and at the end make a fortio, so that the work is well sublimated. And take it out in a chilled vessel, and thus you will find mercury sublimed as white as snow. White sublimate like snow, and thus sublimate mercury itself 3 times with its dregs, and once without dregs, and thus in the actual operation you did 2 things, that is, you cleansed mercury from its earthiness and blackness, and the moisture it had, and you froze it, you made it white as snow, and you have made it suitable for grinding and mixing, and suitable for digesting in a dry stew, and suitable for turning itself into water, as we shall say below. You have placed within it invisible sulfur, which is a tincture of scarlet, and is the spirit of Roman vitriol, and with it is a great support, since the spirit itself has the nature of dyeing red, and of congealing mercury in substance, and makes it white as snow. And this is what the great philosophers have written, that our stone is made of mercury and sulfur, prepared and separated, and of this work and substance Magifter Arnold says in his treatise parabolically, unless a grain of corn falls to the ground and dies, A and C. Understanding it as a dead grain in the earth, mercury dead with saltpeter and Roman vitriol, and with sulfur, and they're mortified, and they're sublimated when? With fire, and thus it brings forth much fruit. And this is the greater stone, which all the philosophers they searched and hid what they found. And it is a sign that it is incorporated with spirits of vitriol, mercury, and that the sublimated mercury releases many dregs into many dregs at the bottom of the vessel, and the spirit of vitriol rises up because of the aggrieved spirit. Take the vinegar and quench the iron in it 4 times, and it will put there the aforesaid mercurial sublimate, and very finely calcined, and leave it there until the white day. Leave until white, and then drop the aforesaid vinegar through a filter 2 or 3 times, until it is clear, then put it in a glazed earthen dish to a slow fire, and it will make a kind of black cap on top of that material. Then remove that blackness, and make the fire until the vinegar thence let it come out completely, and the spirit of vitriol will remain at the bottom of the vessel, in a very sweet white color, and thus you will have mercury by itself, and on the other side the aforesaid invisible sulfur. For this reason it is common among us that the living silver sublimate carries with it the spirit, and stirs up the invisible sulfur of the stone, and is called a tincture of scarlet. And know that you will not be able to extract or separate the aforesaid spirit from mercury or vitriol, and thus it is prepared and not fixed, Therefore, it is necessary that you extract from mercury himself the fifth essence thus. Chapter 4th regarding the second operation, which involves the reduction of mercury, the fifth sublimation process, which is from Benchius. But the second operation is of the sublimate of mercury himself, who is white as snow, extract his spirit from him. Because to some it is called rather the fifth essence, or the earth of leaves, and the leafy earth, and this spirit is incorruptible, a little less than heaven, although the spirit is not fixed. Nay, it must be violated, and so it must be. Now the fifth essence, namely the spirit of mercury, is extracted and separated in this way. Take 1 pound of saltpeter and the same amount of Roman vitriol, and make the water as strong as you know. And grind the aforesaid mercury very finely, and dissolve thee in the indicated strong water over hot ashes, well closed in violet glass, for 12 hours. And if our mercury is dissolved, put into the said water with the said mercury not dissolved, that is to say, the 7th part of the weight of the aforesaid water of triturated ammonium salt. And this is a certain great secret in this art. Put the hearth there, put the alembic on top of the bladder, and let it drop, and you will see the spirit of mercury, or the soul, whiter than snow, ascending through the sides of the bladder. Secondly, strengthen the fire until the mercury is fully ignited if desired, break the vessel, and extract the fifth essence or spirit of mercury, and find the black species burnt at the bottom of the vessel, separated from the spirit of mercury, and in this operation you have done 2 things. First, you separated the white spirit of mercury, which was earthy, corruptible, and imperfect, and all that earth was burnt by the strong water. And it is as if it were impossible that such an earthy and black thing should be extracted and separated from the snow. Secondly, you imbibed the said spirit of mercury from the spirit of vitriol, which is in the said strong water. And this is what Magifter Arnold says: he drinks as much as he can drink for 12 hours. When mercury dissolved in vitriol water, he drinks more of the spirit of vitriol, invisible sulfur. And the dissolution takes place in 12 hours. Secondly, make new strong water as before, and in it again dissolve the aforementioned fifth essence, and sublime, as you did the last time, and the feces will remain black at the bottom of the vessel, but not so much as before. And again for the 3rd time make strong water as before, and dissolve which was brandy in the 3rd. Again, after distillation and sublimation you will find dregs like a few little black ones, and then you will have the 5th perfect essence, which is called moisture combined with the 5th, and it cannot be altered, nor by fire. It is perpetually burned, and is melted in the fire like wax, and it never makes dregs, nor can burn with some calcining water, and you will have from the balance one and the same. And no more and no less, and then you have the whole material. Second separation of stone, incorruptible, volatile, whiter than snow, and this is the second operation. Chapter 5th concerning the 3rd operation, in which the said 5th essence is prepared and dissolved in water. The 3rd operation is this: take the said spirit of mercury, its 5th essence perfectly separated, and weigh it very finely on a glass stone, and mix with 1 part of it 2 parts of invisible living sulfur, and place it in a glass cup in a physical furnace, in a dry oven to be digested, that is, to be calcined in the ashes of a cabon fire for 8 or 12 days or more, and there it is boiled, so that it dissolves by itself in water, because otherwise it would not be dissolved, and the work could not be completed. Chapter 6th on the 4th operation, in which the 5th essence, reduced to water, is distilled. The 4th operation is to receive mercury, or the so-called 5th essence, with its vessel. At the same time, after digestion, place it in a dry physic stove in the basin of Mary, and let it be left there until it is completely dissolved in water, and stand with the head of the alembic, and come up from it a drop of dew, which is said to be clear water, tears of life, milk of the purest virgin, the material of stone, the last preparation or separation perfect, the taste of the tongue sour, volatile, not fixed, almost incorruptible, reducible to dust by digestion, which was known by Phoebus, and Hermes found the father of the children. Rosarius understood it, not unknown to Avicenna. Magifter Arnoldus dictated it from a new town, and Master Raymundus Lullius likewise. Indeed, Arnold says that he wishes that the Son of Man should ascend from the earth into the air, and that he should ascend on the cross of the alembic like Crystalis. And therefore Arnold says that he wishes to ascend to the cross, when he says that the Son of Man must be exalted to the cross, that is, to the air, which is in the alembic, and when this dissolution is complete, then you have your material perfect, and if you throw 1 drop on a red-hot plate, it will whiten it inside and out. And thus you have seen that the material of the stone is one thing, not simple but composed of spirit, namely mercury, and the vitriol spirit of the Romans. Because spirit is called invisible sulfur, no, but of the common philosophers, which is the intrinsic tincture of red, though it may appear white, yet by experiment it is red. And for this reason, mercury needs the sulfur of white vitriol. Therefore, by the distillation or dissolution itself, you will find in the bottom of the vessel two elements mixed together, namely the element of air and fire, which are incombustible. For there remains the gross combustible matter, and you have extracted from it the element of water animated by the spiritual soul. And then there is sufficient material for the white in particular, and suitable for the red. And if you want to separate others three elements from each other, you will work in this way. Take those dregs, grind them, and put them to be digested in a dry stove, as you did before. Then put them in a bath to dissolve and distill as before with a very strong fire. And what rises through the fire of the bath is the element of air and color, that is, in the touch of oil, very white. Take the ipfum and save it, and afterwards transfer the vessel to the fire of sublimation in the ashes. And give it to the fire, and it will ascend through the alembic a red fire, and the color red oil. Take the IPFU and keep it to one side, and thus you have mercury subjugated to four elements separated from each other. First, the watery element, viz. the milk of the virgin, distilled in the fourth operation, before the last matter was dissolved in the bath. Secondly, the acrid element, viz. after the final dissolution. Thirdly, the red oil of the fire, that is, the oil distilled for the fire outside the bath. Fourthly, you have oil, or the element of the earth, at the bottom of the urinal, very black or coal, which is of no value anymore, so that it may be thrown outside and trampled upon by men. Did they understand all this? I do not know how it can be said more clearly, certainly about this fourth operation. Chapter 7 of the fifth operation, which is the preparation of the matter, or virgin's milk to white, by its reduction of CUs into powder. This operation is how to prepare the milk, and how the milk of the virgin is digested and be reduced by the power of fire to dust so fine that it cannot be felt by the touch. Then, with the blessing of Jesus Christ, and some philosophers have said that an animal should be taken with all its blood, and it is called an animal, because it grows when it is sublimated. And because it has a bloody soul, that is to say, the aforesaid invisible spirit of vitriol, and put it in a flask with a round bottom, set fire to its neck, and strangle it, that is, tighten it with tongs, so that nothing can come out, and place the plate between the fire and the vessel, which is well prepared. This is perforated, lest the milk of the virgin be destroyed by the fire. And put it in the furnace of the philosophers, so that it has an equal fire on all sides, so that the milk may not flow through an unequal fire. And it is a great service to give the fire in moderation, lest the work be destroyed, and so many coals should burn yet, so as to hold a man's hand. Go unto the sides of the furnace, and the vessel in which is the substance of shining virgin milk, and you will continue the fire until you see the matter turn black. And be glad that then you have the beginning of digestion, and continue the fire until all the colors have passed, and you will see the matter to be whitened a little, and when you see the material very well whitened, you have a jade perfect for white, natural. Chapter the 8th concerning the sixth operation, pro-resin to the reddening of the white stone. The operation of the sixth stone until the stone has been completed from white to red, nothing being completely added or removed. Thus extract from the vessel aforesaid, which is called the egg of the philosophers. And Megifter Arnoldus says that our stone is shut up in the vessel itself, like Christ in the sepulchre. And then take one part of this powder, and boil it to the part with which you will be able to convert all the imperfect metals into true moon, and close the other part in the aforesaid vessel as before. And strengthen the fire, as Master Arnold says, who says that after the stone has reached to perfect whiteness, he does not fear the punishments of fire, since there is no danger in him if you give him a strong fire, since this is so for him necessary. The reason for this is that he who is digested by a slow fire cannot boil to white the invisible sulfur of the vitriol, that is the spirit hidden under the whiteness of the stone. But the spirit of mercury is digested to white in that fire, therefore it is necessary to increase the fire so that it reaches deeper and digests the tincture of scarlet, of sulfur, of hidden vitriol, and made the yip externally by the invigoration of the fire. And by the power of the fire it was turned into red, adding nothing else to it, and thus the great king ascended from the closed tomb, and rose from the dead, with a crown on his head most shining, as he says Megifter Arnoldus, but note that in two vessels, that is to say, such work can be done with stone. Push can be done and work for the white and for the red, with one fire and one oven, except that you draw the vessel for the white clothed with white, and the vessel for the red significantly increased, as I said. And it is known that some people only work this work from virgin milk, and the element they do not care about fire and air. And their work is only through the noblest virgin milk. Some will mix the three elements together, 1 weight of fire, 4 weights of air, 8 weights of virgin milk, and this method is stronger for red, weaker for white, And these three can be done simultaneously in one vessel in a variety of ways, from virgin milk to red. And in another vase of 3 elements, 1 furnace and 1 fire. And you will see if you will prove in different ways the great miracles which have been collected by the Most High God. And about this work there was never before me another who spoke the truth so clearly. Indeed, the great philosophers to whom this secret and mastery was revealed were conspired by the terrible curse of God, so that they would not reveal this divine work to any human being in any way, lest this secret fall into the hands of wicked men. But I do not care for such a curse. Therefore I do not reveal this secret to men, but I reveal it to the Church of God and perfect Christians, and those who fear God, that they may help the poor, and especially the evangelicals, saint churches, that they may visit widows, orphans, etc., orphans in need and tribulations. And this is the 6th operation. On the 7th operation, which is about projection. Chapter 9th on the 7th operation, which is about projection. The 7th part of this work is the practical virtue of that elixir, that is, of perfect medicine. And the virtue of that elixir is to the white, which turn Mercury, Love, Saturn, Mars, and Venus into the true moon, and the virtue of the perfect medicine is to the red, which the aforesaid bodies, and he turned the moon into the sun, and so it happened. Put mercury in a crucible, and heat it so long that the mercury seems to boil and smoke if you wish. Throw over it the boiling medicine, white or red as you like, and give it a strong fire, as if you wanted to melt the moon, and taking a competent decoction, draw it out, and if it had much color, or if it were brittle, then the medicine is perfect. And then throw it on another mercury, as long as the color and hammering please you, and on how many weights it falls, experience will teach you, since sometimes it falls on many weights, sometimes on a few, as one mode of operation will pass into another, and according to the master of the art. On top of the lead and tin, the fusible medicine is thrown, and the fire is increased as above. It is thrown over the lath, iron, and steel in this way. First, the dust is thrown over the fiery plates, and weighed to reheat, or those bodies are melted, and the medicine is thrown into the furnace itself. And these bodies do not need the previous purification, because the medicine is like the fire of hell, virtually consuming all the imperfection of all bodies, and turning them into their own nature, which is their good and ultimate end. And some philosophers, when they wish to work on the moon, throw medicine on brass or iron. And some philosophers, when they wish to work at the moon, throw medicine upon brass or iron. And when it is near the sun, they throw medicine upon the sun, most pure and molten. And this sun is treated with medicine to turn brass or the moon into the sun. And the medicine may be dissolved in the bath and congealed to the fire repeatedly, and thus the power is increased ad infinitum. Chapter 10th on the 8th operation, in which the master's times are treated. And by the burning of Mercury, the sun, and the moon. The 8th operation of this art contains the mastery of the furnace of the calcination of Mercury, the sun, and the moon, and thus it is done. That the side of that one palm should be round about, and make for it ears or vents, through which the smoke may go out, and that the smoke may not rise, and then take a strong iron plate, and fit it over the head of the said furnace, which is round, in such a way that it does not let the whole mouth of the furnace be closed, but let some small vent be left around it, from which the heat could escape, and on the plate itself you will fit a certain number of goths, that is to say, as many as you wish, and every gap should have its own physical egg, where a stone is placed to digest, and around the plate let there be 4 more plates to hold the plate at a little distance from the sides of the furnace, and thus make one pot of air or iron, or a round of earth, and so let the lid of the furnace be. D3, which could be raised, and placed according to that it will be necessary to attend to the matter. Amp. Note that the said pot, of whatever material it may be, must be muddied inside and out, in order that it may be better. Let it keep the heat, and with the said cover you will make one door through which you could put your hand in the heat of the oven, just like that it has been said, but be careful not to touch the vessel, since the poison is very hot. Also note that when you have placed the material inside, you must protect the gates, parietum, aliquid parietum, a wall, something like a wall. They will join together with the clay of wisdom, and linen cloth, and this so that the color does not breathe and the fur does not stand. And this is called a dry stove, in which you can put all spirits and medicines to work or to digest, so that they can be dissolved in water in the bath. And it is called a physic furnace, because that plate causes the heat to rise diametrically. Likewise, make sure that the side of the plate does not come up to the head of the pot, so that the fire does not reverberate to the vessels from the middle, above the bowls and tripod, and make sure that the fire is on all sides of it. For a greater fire goes up through the 3 holes and through the bottom, and in this way you will be able to increase or decrease the fire, according as it seems to you. Note that on top of the tripod, where there is a gap in the plate, you can fit one earthen dish, and below the dish one tripod, and put a philosophic egg there, and put another dish underneath. And so it is convenient to lift or raise two dishes in the air so that the sides of the dishes do not touch. Amp C. On the ninth operation about the order of the projection. Ninth operation is, when you want to make a projection, you do it like this. Take 100 parts of mercury, wash with salt and vinegar, and put it in a crucible over the fire. When it begins to boil, put 1 part of this elixir, prepared in the manner mentioned, over 100 parts of that washed mercury, and the whole medicine will be made over another washed mercury. Then throw 1 part of that coagulated medicine over 100 parts of mercury, washed in a crucible of yeast to the fire, and the whole medicine will still be made. Afterwards, put 1 part of this lastly frozen medicine over 100 parts of this mercury, and all the gold or silver will become the best in every judgment, according as the elixir was prepared for white or red. In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, who is blessed and glorious forever and ever. Amen. The following is a description and form of a physical furnace. This oven will be 3 feet high, and the middle side will be 6 feet inclusive, and will be divided as follows. First, the furnace is arranged in such a way that the space through which the ashes fall through the iron grate is 1 foot high. From the iron fence to the middle, the space where the focus is installed will be 9 inches high. At a height of 2 feet less than a few inches, it must be placed in a half board of shell or iron, in the middle of which there is a round hole of 4 fingers diameters. Having fingers, by which the fervor of the fire can be kindled in the upper part, where the operation takes place. Then, above that opening, 3 exempted covers, slightly wider than the intermediate panels, cross the opening, as was not the case with the letter A quadruped, however. The cover will also have a different round opening. In the first there will be a hole of 3 fingers, in the second 2, and in the third a denique of 1, so that from time to time it may be permitted to use one for the other, as the heat of the fire demands a change of the colors of the covers. The space where the operation takes place, from the middle board to the uppermost roof, will be 1 foot and 3 inches high. In this space, the intermediate board is placed directly above the hole, a shell or iron tripe. This method is marked by the letter B, which in the upper part will be 3.5 inches in length and 6 inches in height. Put on the cut glass, which contains all the material intended for the operation. Above this space in which the operation takes place, a cover or roof of the furnace shell, it will be folded, in the form of a half sphere or di side torn with the depth of the fingers. That should be adapted to the width of the oven, and this cover above in the middle shall have a round opening of 1 finger by which the heat of the fire, whether more intense or milder, is to be examined. Some go on a tripod marked with the letter B and B. A fissured group whose medians correspond to each other as the letter B is marked in the margin. This ball will have a side of 7 inches in the middle, where is included a kind of instrument or vessel, a shell, which the chemists call an egg. So you have a clear description and detailed portrait of the artist of this chemical furnace. Liber Lucis. Modern English interpretation. Chapter 1. The Brother of the Minor Orders. Firstly, I reflected on the prophesied future times depicted in the Gospel, specifically the trials during the era of the Antichrist. During this turbulent period, the Roman Church will suffer under tyranny, being stripped of all its wealth. Yet, even amidst this desolation and turmoil, the Church of God will ultimately be rescued from these tribulations by Christ himself. My purpose here is to enlighten God's chosen people, those blessed with the knowledge of God's workings and truth. I aim to discuss, without excessive verbiage, the workings of the significant philosopher's stone, in both its white and red forms. This approach contrasts with the habits of earlier philosophers who, out of jealousy and bitterness, obscured the art, keeping it away from their own disciples. My intention, inspired by the narrative of the Holy Roman Church's wealth, is to succinctly reveal all the truth about the philosopher's stone. Chapter 2. The material of our stone. The essence of the stone is a single entity, humble in cost, ubiquitously found in a viscous form of water known as mercury. Due to claims of its prevalence in lowly places, many unenlightened individuals, misunderstanding the philosopher's intentions, have fruitlessly searched for this stone in dung heaps. You must understand, my child, that the material for this stone is prepared by eliminating the earthy aspect from mercury and adding the philosopher's sulfur to it. This isn't your ordinary sulfur. It's our specific, invisible sulfur. I'll refer to it by its rightful name, Roman vitriol, a term that some philosophers also know as magnesia. and thus the two operations proceed. Chapter 3. Of the said operation, here is the recipe. Take 1 pound of saltpeter and 1 pound of Roman vitriol. Each component should be ground and mixed together. Dry the mixture in a golden pan over a slow heat, continuously stirring to reduce the moisture. Then take 1 pound of quicksilver derived from ore, not lead. Warm it, wrapped in a cloth, over a mix of glass and saltstone, just hot enough to allow it to seep through the pores. Stir the quicksilver into the mixture with a stick until it is fully blended and no longer visible. Place this blend into a vessel for sublimation over a gentle flame. Make sure the vessel is well sealed once placed over the vent, then gradually increase the heat for a span of 12 hours. At the end of this period, add a fortio to enhance the sublimation process. Let the vessel cool down after, and you will find the mercury sublimed, as white as snow. Repeat the sublimation process with mercury 3 times using its residue, and once without residue. During this operation, you achieve 2 things. You purify mercury of its earthiness, blackness, and moisture, and you transform it into a snow-white substance. This is then fit for grinding, blending, and digesting in a dry stew, and can be turned into a liquid, as we will discuss later. You have added invisible sulfur, which is a scarlet tincture in the spirit of Roman vitriol. This spirit is the main supporter since it inherently possesses the ability to color red and solidify mercury into a snow-white substance. The great philosophers have written that our stone is made of mercury and sulfur, both prepared and separated. This process is similar to the allegory in Magister Arnold's treatise. A grain must fall to the ground and die to bear fruit. This metaphor refers to the mercury deadened with saltpeter, Roman vitriol, and sulfur, then mortified and sublimated by fire, resulting in abundant fruit. This is the greater stone that the philosophers sought and concealed once discovered. The sign of successful incorporation is when the sublimated mercury releases much residue at the bottom of the vessel, and the spirit of vitriol ascends due to agitation. Take vinegar and soak iron in it 4 times, then add the aforementioned mercurial sublimate, which should be finely calcined, and leave until it whitens. Strain the vinegar through a filter 2 or 3 times, until clear, then place it in a slow-heated glazed earthen dish. It will form a black cap on top of the substance. Remove this blackness, continue heating until all the vinegar has evaporated, and the spirit of vitriol will remain at the bottom of the vessel in a sweet white color. You will then have pure mercury and invisible sulfur. The sublimated living silver is believed to carry the spirit and stimulate the stone's invisible sulfur, referred to as the scarlet tincture. It's important to note that you can extract or separate the spirit from mercury or vitriol as it is prepared but not fixed. Thus, you must extract the 5th essence from mercury itself, as follows. Preparation of mercurial sublimate. Materials. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1 pound of saltpeter, potassium nitrate. 1 pound of Roman vitriol, ferrous sulfate. 1 pound of quicksilver, mercury, glass, and saltstone mixture cloth, stirring stick, golden pan, sublimation vessel, furnace, vinegar, iron. Procedure. 1. Start by taking 1 pound of saltpeter and 1 pound of Roman vitriol. Grind each component separately, ensuring they reach a fine, powdery consistency. 2. Mix the ground components together in a golden pan. Apply slow heat and continuously stir to reduce moisture until dry. 3. Take 1 pound of quicksilver. Ensure it's derived from ore, not lead. Warm this quicksilver wrapped in a cloth over a mixture of glass and salt stone. The heat should be just enough to allow it to seep through the cloth's pores. 4. Gradually add and stir the warmed quicksilver into the saltpeter and Roman vitriol mixture. Stir until it's fully incorporated and no longer visible. 5. Transfer this blend into a sublimation vessel and seal it tightly. Place it over a gentle flame. Gradually increase the heat over a span of 12 hours. 6. At the end of the heating period, add a fortio to enhance the sublimation process. Allow the vessel to cool. The result should be a sublimed mercury, appearing as white as snow. 7. Repeat the sublimation process 3 more times using the residual mercury, and once without any residue. This step is meant to purify the mercury and transform it into a snow-white substance fit for further processing. 8. Now prepare to extract the spirit of vitriol. Soak iron in vinegar 4 times, then add the finely calcined mercurial sublimate to it and leave until it whitens. 9. Strain the vinegar through a filter 2 or 3 times until it is clear. 10. Place the filtered liquid in a slow-heated glazed earthen dish. A black cap will form on top of the substance. 11. Remove this blackness, continue heating until all the vinegar has evaporated. 12. The spirit of vitriol will remain at the bottom of the vessel as a sweet white residue. Note: The result of this experiment should yield pure mercury and invisible sulfur. You should note the release of much residue at the bottom of the vessel, indicating a successful sublimation. The sublimated living silver is believed to stimulate the invisible sulfur, referred to as the scarlet tincture. The process described above is an allegory and should be handled with care. Always remember to wear appropriate personal protective equipment and follow the safety guidelines of your laboratory when handling these chemicals. Chapter 4. Regarding the second operation, which involves the reduction of mercury, the fifth sublimation process, which is from Bentius. The second operation involves the sublimation of mercury itself, which is as white as snow. We need to extract its spirit, which is known to some as the fifth essence, or the earth of leaves, and leafy earth. The spirit is nearly incorruptible, just below the level of heaven, though it isn't fixed indeed. It must be changed. To extract the fifth essence, or the spirit of mercury, proceed as follows. Take 1 pound of saltpeter and an equal amount of Roman vitriol to create a powerful water solution. Then finally grind the aforementioned mercury and dissolve it in the strong water over hot ashes, well enclosed within a glass vessel, for 12 hours. If our mercury is dissolved, add the 7th part of the weight of the aforementioned strong water of crushed ammonium salt to the said water with the undissolved mercury. This is a great secret in this art. Place the mixture on the hearth, fit the alembic atop the bladder, and allow it to distill. You will observe the spirit of mercury, or the soul whiter than snow, ascending through the sides of the bladder. Next, intensify the fire until the mercury is thoroughly ignited. If desired, break the vessel, extract the fifth essence or spirit of mercury, and you will find the burnt black species at the bottom of the vessel, separate from the spirit of mercury. In this operation, you've accomplished two things. First, you've separated the white spirit of mercury, which was earthy, corruptible, and imperfect. All that earthiness was burnt away by the strong water. It's remarkable that such an earthy and black substance could be extracted and separated from the snow. Second, you've imbued the said spirit of mercury with the spirit of vitriol, which is present in the said strong water. As Magister Arnold states, he drinks as much as he can drink for 12 hours. When mercury is dissolved in vitriol water, it absorbs more of the spirit of vitriol, the invisible sulfur, over 12 hours. Then create new strong water as before, and dissolve the aforementioned fifth essence in it. Sublimate as you did the last time, and the feces will remain black at the bottom of the vessel, but not as much as before. Repeat for the third time, making strong water as before, dissolving what was distilled, and again sublimating. After this process, you will find only a small amount of black residue. Then you will have obtained the perfect fifth essence, which is also known as the combined moisture of the fifth. This essence cannot be changed, nor can it be burned perpetually by fire. It melts in the fire like wax, leaves no residue, and cannot be burnt by any calcining water. From the process, you will retain exactly the original amount, no more and no less. Now, you have the complete material for the second separation of the stone. This substance is incorruptible, volatile, and whiter than snow. This concludes the second operation. Extraction of the spirit of mercury, fifth sublimation process. Materials. 1 pound of saltpeter, potassium nitrate. 2 1 pound of Roman vitriol, ferrous sulfate. 3 1 pound of sublimated mercury. 4 crushed ammonium salt, as 7th part of the weight of the strong water. 5 glass vessel. 6 alembic distillation apparatus. 7 bladder. Procedure. 1 bat begin by creating a strong water solution. 2 mix 1 pound of saltpeter and an equal amount of Roman vitriol. Ensure both are thoroughly combined to create the potent solution. 3 finally grind the previously sublimated mercury. 4 transfer this into the strong water solution, ensuring that it is well enclosed within a glass vessel. 5 heat this mixture over hot ashes for a period of 12 hours. 6 following the dissolution of the mercury, add crushed ammonium salt to the strong water. The quantity of ammonium salt should be 1/7 of the weight of the strong water. 7 place the mixture on the hearth and fit an alembic atop the bladder. Allow the solution to distill. As the distillation proceeds, the spirit of mercury should ascend through the sides of the bladder. 8 intensify the heat until the mercury is thoroughly ignited. 9 if desired, break the vessel, extract the fifth essence or spirit of mercury, and observe the burnt black species at the bottom of the vessel, separate from the spirit of mercury. 10 prepare a new batch of strong water as previously done. 11 dissolve the fifth essence into this new strong water solution. Repeat the sublimation process as in step 4. You will notice a black residue, feces, at the bottom of the vessel, but not as much as before. 12 repeat step 6 for the third time, making strong water, dissolving the distilled essence, and sublimating. After this process, you will find only a small amount of black residue. This signifies the creation of the perfect fifth essence, which is also known as the combined moisture of the fifth. Note, the final product from this process should be an essence that is incorruptible, volatile, and whiter than snow. This substance should be unaffected by heat, melting like wax, leaving no residue, and should be resistant to any calcining water. The steps provided above should yield a substance equal to the original amount of mercury used, indicating that the process has been completed successfully. Always remember to use appropriate personal protective equipment and follow safety guidelines when conducting this experiment. Chapter V, concerning the third operation, in which the said fifth essence is prepared and dissolved in water. The third operation is as follows. Take the aforementioned spirit of mercury, its perfectly separated fifth essence, and finally weigh it on a glass stone. Combine one part of it with 2 parts of invisible living sulfur. Place this mixture in a glass cup in a physical furnace for calcination, specifically in a dry oven nestled in the ashes of a charcoal fire. Let it digest for 8 to 12 days, or possibly more. This process facilitates its self-dissolution into water. Without this step, it would not dissolve, and the work could not be completed. Preparation and dissolution of the fifth essence in water. Materials. 1. The previously prepared spirit of mercury, fifth essence. 2. Invisible living sulfur 3. Glass stone for weighing 4. Glass cup 5. Furnace or dry oven 6. Charcoal fire. Procedure. 1. Begin by finely weighing the prepared spirit of mercury, fifth essence, on a glass stone. 2. Combine 1 part of the weighed spirit of mercury with 2 parts of invisible living sulfur. Ensure the components are thoroughly mixed. 3. Place this mixture in a glass cup. 4. Transfer the glass cup to a dry oven nestled in the ashes of a charcoal fire. This functions as a physical furnace for calcination. 5. Let the mixture digest for 8 to 12 days, or possibly more depending on the progression of the reaction. This step is crucial, as it facilitates the self-dissolution of the spirit of mercury into water. Note, the digestion period could vary depending on the specific conditions in your lab. Always remember to observe the mixture regularly throughout the process and adjust accordingly. The final product should be a solution of the fifth essence in water. This process completes the third operation. The resultant product should dissolve into water, an essential step for the continuation of the work. Please remember to always wear appropriate personal protective equipment and follow safety guidelines when conducting this experiment. Chapter VI, on the fourth operation, in which the fifth essence, reduced to water, is distilled. The fourth operation involves taking mercury, or the so-called fifth essence, along with its vessel, and after digestion, placing it in a dry heat furnace within a sand bath. It should be left there until it completely dissolves into water. Then, fix the head of the alembic and allow a droplet to rise from it. This droplet is said to be clear water, the tears of life, the milk of the purest virgin, the material of the stone, the ultimate perfect preparation or separation. It has a sour taste, is volatile, nearly incorruptible, and can be reduced to dust through digestion. This was known to Phoebus, discovered by Hermes, the father of the children, understood by Rosarius, not unknown to Avicenna, dictated by Magister Arnoldus from a new town, and likewise by Master Raymundus Lullius. In fact, Arnold wishes that the Son of Man should ascend from the earth into the air, to rise on the cross of the alembic like Crystallis. Therefore Arnold says that the Son of Man must be exalted to the cross, that is, to the air in the alembic. When this dissolution is complete, you have your perfect material. If you drop one droplet onto a red-hot plate, it will turn it white both inside and out. Now, you have seen that the material of the stone is one entity, not simple, but composed of the spirit, namely mercury, and the spirit of Roman vitriol. This spirit is called invisible sulfur, or the innate tincture of red. Even though it may appear white, it turns red upon testing. Hence, mercury needs the sulfur of white vitriol. Thus, through the process of distillation or dissolution, you will find 2 elements mixed together at the bottom of the vessel, the element of air and fire, which are incombustible, as the combustible gross matter remains. From it you have extracted the element of water animated by the spiritual soul. Then, there is enough material for the white in particular, and suitable for the red. If you want to separate the other 3 elements, follow this process. Take those residues, grind them, and place them in a dry oven for digestion as you did before. Then put them in a bath to dissolve and distill, as before, using a very strong fire. What rises through the fire bath is the element of air in color and has the touch of very white oil. Save this. Afterwards, transfer the vessel to the fire of sublimation in the ashes and heat it. It will ascend through the alembic as a red fire, in the color of red oil. Save this as well, and in doing so, you will have mercury subjugated to 4 elements separated from each other. First, the watery element, i.e. the virgin's milk, distilled in the 4th operation before the last matter was dissolved in the bath. Second, the acrid element, i.e. the oil distilled outside the bath. Third, the red oil of fire, and fourth, the oil or the element of earth at the bottom of the urinal, very black or like coal, which is no longer of any value and can be thrown away and trampled upon by men. If you understand all this, I do not know how it can be explained more clearly, especially regarding this 4th operation. The 4th operation, the material of the stone. Objective. The aim of this experiment is to understand and extract the pure essence of mercury and further distill it into its 4 elements. Materials required: 1. Mercury or substance that represents its spiritual equivalent. 2. A clean, sturdy alembic in its head. 3. A furnace capable of producing dry heat. 4. A sand bath. 5. Roman vitriol or its spiritual equivalent. Procedure. 1. Take the prepared mercury or the so-called 5th essence along with its vessel and place it in a dry heat furnace within a sand bath. 2. Maintain the heat until the substance completely dissolves into a water-like state. 3. Fix the head of the alembic and allow it to heat until a droplet rises from it. Note, this droplet is sometimes called clear water or the tears of life. 4. Allow the dissolved material to settle and observe the changes. A single droplet of this substance, when applied to a red-hot plate, is expected to turn it white both inside and out. 5. Take note of the mixture's composition. It's expected to contain the spirit of mercury and the spirit of Roman vitriol. This dual spirit is considered the invisible sulfur or the innate tincture of red. 6. Proceed to separate the other 3 elements, air, fire, and earth. To do this, take the residues left from the previous distillation process, grind them, and place them in a dry oven for digestion. 7. After digestion, put them in a bath to dissolve and distill as before using a very strong fire. 8. Observe the product that rises from this fire bath, which should resemble very white oil. Collect and save this. 9%. Transfer the vessel to the fire of sublimation in the ashes and heat it. The material will ascend through the alembic, resembling a red fire or red oil. 10%. Collect and save this red oil, which represents the element of fire. 11. The remaining element, earth, will be at the bottom of the vessel. It is very black or coal-like and does not hold any significant value for this operation. Safety note: alchemical operations should always be performed with the appropriate safety measures. Ensure you are in a well-ventilated area and wearing the appropriate safety gear, including gloves and goggles. Do not consume any substances produced during these experiments, as their properties and safety for consumption are not guaranteed. Remember, alchemical symbols and processes often represent metaphorical and spiritual transformations rather than literal chemical ones. This guide is a modern interpretation of the original text and is meant to serve as an illustration. It is advisable to understand the philosophical and metaphorical implications before engaging in any practical application. Chapter 7 of the 5th operation, which is the preparation of the matter, or virgin's milk to white, by its reduction of CIUs into powder. This operation describes the preparation of the milk, how the virgin's milk is digested, and how it is reduced by the power of fire to such fine dust that it cannot be felt to the touch. Then, with the blessing of Jesus Christ, as some philosophers have stated, an animal should be taken with all its blood. It's referred to as an animal because it grows when it is sublimated, and because it possesses a bloody soul, which is the aforesaid invisible spirit of vitriol. Place this in a flask with a round bottom, apply heat to its neck, and strangle it, meaning tighten it with tongs so that nothing can escape. Then, place a plate between the fire and the vessel, which is well prepared and perforated to prevent the virgin's milk from being destroyed by the fire. Put this setup in the philosopher's furnace, ensuring it receives equal heat from all sides. This prevents the milk from flowing unevenly due to imbalanced heat. It is important to regulate the fire, as too much could destroy the work. Thus, the fire should be maintained such that one can hold their hand under the sides of the furnace. Place the vessel with a substance of shining virgin milk inside, and keep up the heat until you see the material turn black. Rejoice, for then you have the beginning of digestion. Continue the heat until all the colors have passed, and you will observe the material turning slightly white. When you see the material thoroughly whitened, you have perfectly prepared the jade for the white operation. The 5th operation, preparation, and digestion of the virgin's milk. Objective: The purpose of this experiment is to digest the so-called virgin's milk, observe its change of color through the process, and prepare the white jade. Materials required: 1. The substance representing the virgin's milk. 2. A flask with a round bottom. 3. Tongs. 4. A perforated plate. 5. A furnace capable of even heating. Procedure: 1. Take the virgin's milk substance and place it in the round bottom flask. Ensure this material is represented correctly as per the alchemical symbolism. This substance is referred to as an animal due to its unique properties and growth upon sublimation. 2. Heat the neck of the flask using tongs. The objective here is to strangle it, meaning tighten it securely so that none of the material can escape. 3. Position a perforated plate between the fire and the flask. This serves to protect the virgin's milk from direct exposure to the fire, thus preventing its destruction. 4. Place the setup in a furnace designed for even heating. This action aims to prevent the milk from flowing unevenly due to imbalanced heat. 5. Regulate the fire to prevent damage to the work. The fire's intensity should be such that one can comfortably place their hand under the sides of the furnace. 6. Introduce the flask containing the virgin's milk into the furnace and maintain the heat. Observe for a change in color. The appearance of a black color indicates the beginning of digestion. 7. Maintain the heat until the black color transitions through several other colors, ending with a white color. Once the material appears thoroughly white, it indicates the successful preparation of the jade for the white operation. Safety note: as with all alchemical experiments, follow safety guidelines diligently. Handle heat sources carefully and wear protective equipment. These procedures often involve metaphorical transformations rather than physical, so understanding their philosophical significance is crucial. Chapter the 8th. Concerning the 6th operation, naturally progressing to the reddening of the white stone. The 6th operation involves transforming the stone from white to red, with nothing additional required or to be removed. Extract from the vessel, which is referred to as the egg of the philosophers. As Magister Arnoldus states, our stone is sealed in this vessel, much like Christ in the sepulchre. Then take one part of this powder and mix it with the part you will use to convert all imperfect metals into true lunar silver. Seal the remaining part in the aforesaid vessel as before, and increase the heat. As Master Arnoldus points out, once the stone has reached perfect whiteness, it fears not the punishments of fire, and there is no danger if you expose it to a strong fire. Indeed, this is a necessary step. The reason being the invisible sulfur of the vitriol, i.e., the spirit hidden beneath the stone's whiteness, cannot be brought to whiteness through a slow fire. However, the spirit of mercury is digested to white in that fire. Therefore, the fire must be increased so it can reach deeper and digest the scarlet tincture of sulfur from the concealed vitriol, transforming it externally into red by the invigoration of fire, and nothing else needs to be added to it. Thus, the great king emerges from the sealed tomb, rising from the dead, with a most shining crown on his head, as Magister Arnoldus describes. But note, this work can be done in 2 vessels, one for the white and another for the red, both with a single fire and oven. Draw the white-clothed vessel for the white and significantly increase the heat for the red vessel, as stated. Some only work with the virgin's milk and disregard the fire and air elements. Their work focuses solely on the noblest virgin's milk. Others mix the 3 elements together, 1 part fire, 4 parts air, and 8 parts virgin's milk. This method is more potent for the red and weaker for the white. These 3 can be processed simultaneously in one vessel, creating a variety of methods, from the virgin's milk to red, and in another vessel with 3 elements, using a single furnace and fire. You will see the great miracles that the Most High God has gathered if you experiment with these various methods. In the past, those great philosophers who had this secret and mastery revealed to them were bound by a dreadful divine curse to not disclose this divine work to any human, so as to prevent the secret from falling into the hands of wicked men. However, I do not concern myself with such a curse. Therefore, I do not reveal the secret to men, but to the Church of God, to perfect Christians, and those who fear God, so they may help the poor, especially the evangelical churches, so they may assist widows, orphans, and those in need and tribulation. This concludes the 6th operation, the 6th operation, reddening of the white stone. Objective. The goal of this experiment is to transition the alchemically created white stone to a red stone. This operation represents a transformation of the stone without adding or removing anything, symbolizing a deeper philosophical process. Materials required: 1. The white stone substance created from the 5th operation. 2. A sealed vessel or philosopher's egg. 3. A furnace. 4. Optional, 2nd vessel. Procedure. 1. Extract the white stone from the sealed vessel, also referred to as the egg of. the philosophers. This vessel is considered as a metaphorical sepulchre where the stone is sealed. 2. Take one part of this white stone and mix it with the part you'll use for your alchemical transformation, a metaphorical process of converting imperfect metals into true lunar silver. 3. Place the remaining part of the white stone back in the original vessel and seal it as before. 4. Increase the heat in the furnace. The stone, having achieved perfect whiteness, should theoretically be resistant to higher heat levels. 5. Continue heating until the invisible sulfur or spirit concealed within the stone transforms it into a red stone. This transformation is thought to be achieved through the increased heat, allowing for the digestion of the scarlet tincture of sulfur present in the concealed vitriol. 6. Observe the transformation process, symbolizing the emergence of the great king from the sealed tomb, resplendent with a shining crown. Note, this experiment can be carried out in 2 separate vessels, one for the white stone and another for the red stone, both within the same furnace. This process symbolizes a divergence of the alchemical operations into a white path and a red path. The heat level should be significantly increased for the red stone. Safety note: always remember that these alchemical processes are metaphors for spiritual or psychological transformations and not to be taken literally. Ensure that you follow all safety precautions if performing these as physical operations. Remember, this guide is a modern interpretation of the original text and serves as an illustration rather than an actual chemical guide. Do not proceed with practical applications, it could turn you into a fool. Chapter 9. On the 7th operation, which is about projection. The 7th part of this work focuses on the practical efficacy of the elixir, or the perfect medicine. The virtue of the elixir when applied to the white converts Mercury, cuprum, copper, Saturn, lead, Mars, iron, and Venus, copper, into the true moon, silver. The virtue of the perfect medicine when applied to the red transforms the aforesaid bodies and the moon into the sun, gold, as follows. Put mercury in a crucible and heat it until the mercury appears to boil and smoke. If desired, sprinkle over it the boiling medicine, either white or red, according to preference, then increase the heat as if intending to melt the moon. After sufficient decoction, remove it. If it possesses much color, or if it is brittle, then the medicine is perfect. Next, pour it over another batch of mercury, repeating until the color and texture are to your liking. How many weights it affects will be learned through experience, as sometimes it impacts many weights, sometimes a few, depending on the method of operation and the master's skill. With lead and tin, pour the fusible medicine over them and intensify the fire as before. For lath, iron, and steel, the process is slightly different. Firstly, dust is sprinkled over the heated plates, and the weight adjusted during reheating, or those bodies are melted, and the medicine is poured into the furnace itself. These bodies do not require prior purification because the medicine acts like the fire of hell, having the power to consume all the imperfections of all bodies, transforming them into their own nature, which is their beneficial and ultimate end. Some philosophers, when they aim to work on the moon, sprinkle medicine upon brass or iron. When close to the sun, they sprinkle medicine upon the pure and molten sun. The sun is treated with medicine to transform brass or the moon into the sun. The medicine can be dissolved in a bath and congealed to the fire repeatedly, and thus its power is increased ad infinitum. The 7th operation, practical application of the elixir. Objective. The objective of this operation is to demonstrate the practical uses of the elixir or the perfect medicine. The elixir, when applied to the white, is believed to transform Mercury, cuprum, copper, Saturn, lead, Mars, iron, and Venus, copper, into the true moon, silver. When applied to the red, it purportedly transmutes these metals and the moon into the sun, gold. Materials required. 1. The elixir or the perfect medicine created through previous operations. 2. Metals including Mercury, cuprum, copper, Saturn, lead, Mars, iron, Venus, copper, moon, silver, and sun, gold. 3. A crucible and a furnace. 4. Optional, bath for dissolution. Procedure. 1. Place mercury in a crucible and apply heat until it appears to boil and smoke. 2. Sprinkle either the white or red elixir, depending on the desired result, over the boiling mercury. Increase the heat as though intending to melt moon, silver. 3. Remove the substance from heat after sufficient decoction. If it shows color or becomes brittle, the medicine has reached perfection. 4. Pour this perfected medicine over another batch of mercury and repeat the process until the color and texture are to your satisfaction. 5. Experimentation is key to understanding the impacts of the elixir. as it can vary significantly depending on the method and skill of the practitioner. 6. For transforming lead and tin, pour the fusible medicine over these metals and increase the heat as before. 7. For iron, lath, and steel, sprinkle the dust of the elixir over the heated plates and adjust the weight during reheating, or melt these bodies and pour the medicine directly into the furnace. These metals do not need prior purification, as the elixir supposedly consumes all their imperfections, transmuting them into their beneficial and ultimate end. 8. Some alchemists, when working on transmuting moon, silver, sprinkle the elixir upon brass or iron. When working on the sun, gold, they apply the medicine to the pure and molten sun, gold, to transmute brass or moon, silver, into sun, gold. 9. The elixir can be dissolved in a bath and then congealed to the fire repeatedly. This is believed to increase its power infinitely. Safety note: do not attempt this experiment without proper safety gear and precautions, particularly when handling toxic metals such as mercury and lead. Chapter X, on the 8th operation, in which the master's times are treated. And by the burning of Mercury, the sun, and the moon. The 8th operation in this art describes the mastery of the furnace used for the calcination of Mercury, the sun, and the moon. Here is the process. Construct a furnace with a round palm side and create vents or openings for smoke to exit. To prevent the smoke from rising, place a strong iron plate on the top of the furnace. The plate should not completely cover the furnace mouth, but leave a small vent for heat to escape. You will attach a certain number of Goths, holes, to this plate, as many as you wish, and each gap should contain its own philosophical egg where a stone is set to digest. Around the plate, add 4 more plates to keep the main plate slightly distanced from the furnace sides. Construct a pot of air, iron, or round earth, and use it as the furnace lid, which can be lifted and adjusted as necessary to tend to the matter within. Important to note, the said pot, regardless of its material, should be mudded both inside and out for better heat retention. You'll need to create a door in the lid to allow you to insert your hand to adjust the heat of the oven as needed, but be careful not to touch the vessel as it becomes very hot. After placing the material inside, ensure the gates, walls of the furnace, are sealed with the clay of wisdom and a linen cloth to prevent the color from escaping and the fur from standing. This is known as a dry stove, suitable for all spirits and medicines for work or digestion, so they can be dissolved in the bath water. This setup is known as a physic furnace because the plate directs the heat upwards. It's essential that the side of the plate doesn't touch the pot's head to prevent fire from reverberating to the vessels from the middle, above the bowls, and tripod. The fire should surround the pot for a greater heat concentration. More fire goes up through the 3 holes than through the bottom, so you can adjust the fire intensity as necessary. Take note, at the top of the tripod where there's a gap in the plate, you can place 1 earthen dish. Below this dish, place a tripod and set a philosophical egg there. Place another dish beneath this setup. You should then lift or raise 2 dishes in the air to ensure the sides of the dishes do not touch. The 8th operation, construction and mastery of the furnace. Objective. The 8th operation in the series addresses the creation and mastery of the furnace for calcination of Mercury, the sun, and the moon. Materials required: furnace materials, e.g. bricks, clay, 2. Strong iron plate, 3. Additional plates, 4. Pot of air, iron, or earth, 5. Linen cloth, 6. Philosophical eggs, vessels in which the stone is placed, 7. Clay of wisdom for sealing, 8. Tripod, 9. Earthen dishes. Procedure: 1. Begin by building a furnace with a round palm side and create openings or vents for smoke to exit. 2. To prevent smoke from rising, position a robust iron plate on top of the furnace. The plate should not entirely cover the furnace mouth, but leave a small vent for the heat to escape. 3. Attach a number of Goths holes to this plate, as many as you wish. Each hole should contain its own philosophical egg where the stone is set for digestion. 4. Surround the main plate with 4 additional plates to keep it slightly distanced from the furnace sides. 5. Create a pot of air, iron, or earth to serve as the furnace lid. This lid can be lifted and adjusted as necessary to tend to the matter within. 6. Mud the pot both inside and out to improve heat retention. 7. Construct a door in the lid to allow the adjustment of the furnace's heat as needed. Be cautious not to touch the vessels inside, as they can become very hot. 8. After placing the materials inside, seal the walls of the furnace gates with the clay of wisdom and a linen cloth. This step prevents the color from escaping and the fur from standing. This setup is referred to as a dry stove, suitable for the dissolution of all spirits and medicines in bath water. This design is referred to as a physic furnace because the plate directs the heat upwards. Ensure the side of the plate does not touch the head of the pot to prevent fire from reverberating to the vessels. The fire should surround the pot for greater heat concentration, with more fire going up through the 3 holes than through the bottom. You can adjust the intensity of the fire as needed. At the top of the tripod, where there's a gap in the plate, place 1 earthen dish. Place a tripod beneath this dish and set a philosophical egg there. Place another dish beneath this setup, then lift or raise 2 dishes in the air to ensure the sides of the dishes do not touch. Note, as with the previous operations, these processes should not be taken literally. They serve as metaphorical representations of spiritual and personal transformation. There are philosophical implications and potential physical dangers associated with furnace operation. Chapter She, on the 9th operation, about the order of the projection, the 9th operation and the physical furnace. The 9th operation is initiated when you aim to create a projection. This involves using mercury that has been cleaned with salt and vinegar. Take 100 parts of this clean mercury and place it in a crucible on the fire. As the mercury starts boiling, add 1 part of the elixir that has been prepared as previously described. This process involves pouring the elixir over 100 parts of the clean mercury, and the entire mixture becomes the medicine. Subsequently, 1 part of the resulting coagulated medicine is poured over 100 parts of mercury, which has also been cleaned in a yeast-filled crucible on fire. This process creates the whole medicine again. Finally, place 1 part of this lastly frozen medicine over 100 parts of mercury. Depending on whether the elixir was prepared for white or red, all of the gold or silver will become the finest quality, as per every evaluation criteria. This process is conducted in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, who is eternally blessed and glorious. Amen. The 9th operation, creation of a projection and utilization of the physical furnace. Objective. The 9th operation details the process of creating a projection, using mercury cleaned with salt and vinegar. It further describes how to apply the prepared elixir to this clean mercury and the coagulation process that ensues. Materials required: mercury salt vinegar elixir, prepared as per previous instructions. A crucible fire source procedure. Begin by cleaning 100 parts of mercury with salt and vinegar. This process purifies the mercury, removing any potential impurities. Place the clean mercury in a crucible and put the crucible on the fire. As the mercury begins to boil, add 1 part of the elixir, which has been previously prepared according to the given instructions. Pour this elixir over the 100 parts of clean mercury, creating a mixture which becomes the medicine. Subsequently, take 1 part of this coagulated medicine and pour it over another 100 parts of clean mercury, which is placed in a yeast-filled crucible on fire. This process results in the creation of the whole medicine again. Finally, take 1 part of this newly created frozen medicine and place it over another 100 parts of clean mercury. Depending on whether the elixir was prepared for the white, silver, or the red gold, all the mercury will transform into the highest quality gold or silver. The entire process is performed in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, who is eternally blessed and glorious. Amen. Note, as always, it's critical to remember that these operations represent metaphorical or allegorical instructions for a spiritual or personal transformation. The process described should not be undertaken without a comprehensive understanding of the philosophical symbolism it represents, as well as the potential physical hazards associated with handling substances like mercury. What follows is a detailed layout and design for a physical furnace. The furnace will be 3 feet high and 6 feet wide in the middle, partitioned as follows. Initially, the furnace's design allows for a 1 foot high space for ashes to fall through an iron grate. The area from the iron fence to the middle, where the focus is set, stands 9 inches high. At a height of just under 2 feet, a semicircular board of shell or iron should be placed. This board has a round hole 4 fingers in diameter, which allows for the fire's heat to be intensified for the operation in the upper part. Above this opening, there are 3 wider exempted covers that cross the opening not indicated by the letter A. Each cover has a distinct rounded opening. The first has a 3-finger hole, the second a 2-finger hole, and the third a 1-finger hole. This design allows for changing the covers as the fire's heat and the operation dictate. The space for the operation, extending from the middle board to the top of the furnace, measures 1 foot and 3 inches in height. Here, a shell or iron tripe, marked by the letter B, is placed directly above the hole. This shell, being 3.5 inches in length and 6 inches in height at the top, is positioned on the cut glass, which holds all the material for the operation. Above this operation space, there is a half-spherical or die-side torn cover or roof made of the furnace shell. It should fit the width of the oven and feature a 1-finger round opening at the top. This opening is used to check the intensity of the fire. Some furnaces have a tripod marked with the letter B, holding a split group whose medians match the letter B marked on the side. This group is 7 inches wide in the middle and contains a type of vessel or instrument known as an egg in chemistry. With this, you have a comprehensive and detailed representation of this alchemical furnace. Furnace's specifications. Overall dimensions. The furnace is 3 feet high and 6 feet wide in the middle. Ash fall space. The furnace is designed with a 1 foot high space at the bottom to allow ashes to fall through an iron grate. 2. Focus installation space. From the iron fence to the middle, the space is 9 inches high where the focus is installed. 3. Semicircular board. At a height of just under 2 feet, there is a semicircular board of shell or iron, with a round hole 4 fingers in diameter. This is for intensifying the fire's heat in the upper operational area. 4. Exempted covers. Above the semicircular board's hole are 3 exempted covers, each with a different round opening, 3-finger hole, 2-finger hole, 1-finger hole. These covers can be changed based on the fire's heat and operation requirements. 5. Operational space. The space for conducting the operation is 1 foot and 3 inches high. It extends from the middle board to the furnace's top. 6. Iron tripe or shell. Within the operational space, there is an iron tripe or shell, marked by the letter B. The shell is positioned directly above the hole and has dimensions of 3.5 inches in length and 6 inches in height at the top. 7. Cut glass. The iron shell or tripe is positioned on cut glass, which holds all the material for the operation. 8. Furnace shell cover. Above the operational space, there is a half-spherical cover or roof made from the furnace shell. The cover fits the width of the oven and has a 1-finger round opening at the top, used to monitor the intensity of the fire. Tripod. Some furnaces feature a tripod, marked with the letter BB. This tripod holds a split group that is 7 inches wide in the middle and contains an instrument or vessel known as an egg in alchemical terms. This list contains the major specifications and components of the furnace described in the text.